Hey everyone, doing another video. All right, so today is going to be an acrylic seascape. I'm using 8x10 cradle birch wood. So let me show you what that looks like. Bam, bam. All right. So what I do is usually put up about 2 to 3 layers of primer sealer, and then sometimes just lightly sand it with the 180 grit sandpaper, just slightly. I like to work on wood because I could put out a lot of details. It's easier to work with than with canvas, and the paint applies a lot easier. So now this painting was by popular demand, and I was just reminded about this painting again by another poster. If I could do this painting, I've done it before, but today we're going to do it again. So I'm going to be posting that picture, the reference photo, on the top corner somewhere on this video. So let's go with the colors. So I have cad yellow medium, I have yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, cerulean blue, burnt umber, and white, titanium white. So like I said, I'm using acrylics, and so let's start. All right, so for the sky, it's always nice to work with a limited palette because you don't get lost with all the color choices that that's out there. Because and you keep in the color harmony as well. And what I mean by color harmony is like you make colors with whatever you have, and not having too much of a complicated formula. And you'll learn your colors better by having a limited palette. I hope that kind of made sense. I was just kind of rambling. All right, so I just starting off with the sky. What we're gonna do here is just trying to fill the panel with a bunch of colors, approximate values, and the approximate colors I'm going to eventually use in the final stage. So this is going to be just the first stage. And then after that, once this dry, we're going to work over the same colors, just adding a little bit more details such as midtones and highlights as well. So the gist of this is just fill in all the canvas, so there's really no white left, and then you could better judge your values. So now I'm just using ultramarine blue, maybe just a little bit of ultramarine blue with that. And the reason, too much. And the reason I did that was to make like a transition color, and you'll see what I mean by that. Maybe a little bit more cerulean. Now remember, acrylics dry darker, all right? So you guys remember that. So if you find a color that you like, make it just a little bit lighter. It's okay if you go over some of the work you just did, that's fine. I'm using a flat here. This is a number 8. This actually is by Winsor & Newton. It's a university flat. Works pretty nicely. All right. Normally I start with my darks, but today not so much. It's okay. I'll put my dark after I put in these colors here. Trying to paint this fast. That's what's nice about acrylic. You could paint pretty fast and add subsequent layers right after. I'm not used to painting upright like this, but that's the only way I can figure out to show you guys my my color palette. All right, so I just made the grade down, kind of like lavender color here, because in Florida you have some beautiful moody skies, If you've ever been down here, you know what I'm talking about. There you go. Stay loose. All right. Nothing complicated here. Yep. And we're probably going to go back over this in a minute. It looks like crap right now, but that's okay. All right, let's start working on the grass. So for the base of the grass, usually what I start with, you could use a burnt sienna and a little bit of ultramarine blue to make the base color of the ground, of the earth. But what I like to do, if you don't have burnt sienna, but I do have it, but if you don't, and you're out in the field, you can make burnt sienna by mixing the right amount of ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and yellow. Watch, boom. That looks like a burnt sienna to me. And just, you know, very thinly, kind of like oils, just thinly just dab it on there. And let some of this translucency show through, because it will help you in the end. Sometimes it's nice to have those transparent colors like show through, believe it or not. Maybe just add a little bit darker. Because red and green makes a brownish color. Plop it on whichever way, make some wherever your darks are going to go. Blah, 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 blah. Here we go. Ultramarine blue. Go right back into this pile here. Maybe just a little bit of white. Because this is, oh, well, it's almost dry. Sorry. This is why I love acrylics. You just go right back into it. Now keep it nice and dark. All right, so let's work that a little bit. Now remember, the further back you go, the more of a blue tint that you will have, because yellow and red are, as you go look into a distance, are the first two colors that will tend to disappear. Okay, now I'm not a scientist. You could look that up and see why. And if you know why, you could post in the comment and we all will learn from you. All right, so we did that. The clouds, let's do the sand. Sand, sand, sand. All right, sand. Let's start with the base color for the sand. Let's go with a little bit of yellow ochre. It's nice and warm with a little bit of ultramarine blue, maybe a little bit of burnt umber and white. Maybe just a little bit more blue, a little bit of umber. Gray that down a little bit. Let me see what that looks like. Yeah. That's going to be the base color for the sand. And as I get closer towards the foreground, I'm going to add a little bit of reddish, purplish color. And that will be the base. As the colors come towards the foreground, they usually tend to be a bit warmer. As you can see, I'm not too concerned about what the base layer looks like or how I apply it. If I don't like it, I could change it afterwards. You know, maybe I'm going to make it a little bit darker on that foreground. And the reason why I'm going to do that is so that the light, I'm going to have like a shimmer of light in the sand, as you'll see on the reference photo. There you go. Now you got to judge your values there a little bit. You want approximately about the same value. Well, this is a little bit lighter, but you don't want too much darker here. And what I mean by value is how dark or how light a color is. On a grayscale, that is. All right, let's put in a little bit of a sea here, a little bit of ocean. Let's put a little bit of yellow ochre with this cerulean blue. And the reason why I picked the yellow ochre over the cad yellow medium was because yellow ochre has got a little bit of red into it and it's a little bit more opaque, and it will tone down this green there a bit. There you go. It's just the base layer of that. Let's make it maybe a little bit darker. Let me just go ultramarine blue a little bit. And yellow ochre. A little more blue. There you go. Because when I want to put those wave highlights on there, I want it to show through. As you can see, I'm not doing a fantastic job of keeping all the colors separate, right? That's okay. That's the beauty of acrylics. I could do whatever I want. All right, let's start working on the clouds. And once I start working on the clouds, then I'm gonna start working around the clouds and go back over all this and all the nitty-gritty of the work here. All right, so for the clouds, let's start with, let's use this base color here a little bit more on the blue side. Let's add a little bit more brown. Ultramarine green, blue. Let me see, a little bit more white. Okay. It's going to be like the base of my cloud here. And the background. So now the light's coming from this angle right here. Okay. Maybe I should have established that since the beginning where my light source was. I'm going right over these old colors that I already had in there. No worries. They all blend in. And what it's going to do also is going to give different kind of effects, which I will probably use to my advantage eventually. And you'll see. All right, there you go. I really don't care. All right, let's put some lighter. Remember, light's coming from here, so I'm keeping this a little bit clean. I'm not putting any dark colors on there. I'm just mixing quickly midtones. See, some of these colors here are lifting a little bit because I had a little bit too much water under here, or I used too much water in the mix, and it's lifting a little bit. But look what I'm looking at. I'm looking at something that's gonna give me an idea that I'm gonna put highlights here, giving a different effect on the clouds here. And you might not understand it right now, but you'll see in a minute what I'm talking about. Use whatever you have, any mistakes that happen, trying to see how that mistake could work to your advantage without going crazy as to, oh my God, I messed up the painting. The painting's never really messed, well, it happened to me before, live, while I was painting, and I had to restart the whole sky. Terrible feelings when you have a whole bunch of people watching you paint. It's terrible. All right. All right, so I'm using yellow ochre, and the reason why I use yellow ochre because it's warm, gives those clouds a little bit of warmth. All right, same here. We're gonna give this a little bit of warmth. You can see I'm not being too picky right now. All right, maybe a hint of alizarin crimson. A little bit of burnt umber, and you'll see where that's going. Sometimes at the base of these clouds you see a little bit of orange. You know what, let me add a little bit of blue to that. Tone that, because I'm using, it's a little bit orange, I'm using a little bit of blue to gray down that orange. There you go, you see? Tone it down, tone it down. I kind of like these palettes here. I never used them before. And I picked up one for like, I think it was less than $5 in the art store to show you guys my palette, because I've had a lot of complaints that, oh, I can't see your mixing, I can't see your palette. So guys, I'm doing this for you. So here we go. Now we got the whole thing covered. All right. So let's go back over this and start doing some of the mixing and the blending. All right, so let's make some magic happen here. Let's make something happen. All right, back to this color. Make sure I don't have too much water on my brush, because sometimes what happened, I could start lifting some of the base color, especially if you're using golden open colors. If your brush is too wet, you'll start lifting the base, just as if you were painting with oils. But anyway, that's another story. All right, Let's go back to our original mix here. Burnt umber, ultramarine blue, a little bit of white, too much white. See if this matches. Yeah. Shazam, it matches. If you feel the paint's too sticky, add a little bit of water. All right, now I'm going to start working. Let me see. Let's make a transition, a little bit lighter at the base of that cloud. Making like little C motions, okay? And then just feathering out those colors. And when I say feathering out, means I'm smoothing out these colors a bit while the paint's still kind of damp. All right. Let's work on that now. Bam. All right, so here I'm going to use a little bit more of cerulean. White. Now, if you start feeling your paint getting a little bit hard, don't forget a mist. All right. Let me make a little bit bigger pile here. Cerulean blue, maybe a little bit of ultramarine blue. Let me look at that. Let's go with a little bit of yellow ochre. Gray that down a little bit. Yeah, that works. Let me make more of it. That cerulean blue up there just starting to tack up. Okay, so now I'm just, it's okay if you go over some of this feathering you did earlier. It just blends together. Now you'll see me use a lot of burnt umber in my mixes, and there's a good reason for that, because it will tone down the color, so it's not too too bright. The chroma is, you got to tone it down, because what happens is if your colors are too bright, anything bright on top of that just does not look right and won't be as bright as you want it to be. But if you mute the color, anything bright on top of that or highlights on top of that will show a lot more, because the base color is grayed down enough to where it's muted enough to where it gives the highlights a chance to shine through. I hope that makes some kind of sense. It's okay if I'm painting over what I already did. It's all right. Okay. Let's do this. Ultramarine, a little bit of umber, white. Maybe just a little bit of alizarin. More white. Too dark compared to the rest. There you go. Just give a little bit of shadow side to this cloud. All right, same here. A little bit of shadow side. Stay loose. There you go. Stay loose. A little bit of white. See, some of these colors showing through at the base here. I'm okay with that. It'll just act as a faint highlight. Let's work on mix these two together just to make a transition color. It's okay if you go over your previous colors here. Make a little bit of, I'm doing this gesture just to flick off, make the clouds a little bit fluffy, as you can see in this part right here. Let's do the same thing here. Let's give this cloud some highlights as well. Don't be afraid to use your finger. Remember these little highlights here? Not too much. A little bit of blue to tone this down. Maybe a little bit of white. Really give it that afternoon feel. Maybe a little bit more blue to tone down these colors. A little bit of cad yellow medium, white, and folks, this is what happens when you make your colors very muted. You're able to put stronger highlights on top of these colors and they will show through. I'm going to draw it down to a smaller brush. This is a filbert, number 4. Let's give a little bit more definition to these background trees. So back again to ultramarine blue, maybe a little bit of yellow ochre. Give it like this muted green. Maybe use a little bit of burnt umber on top of that. Let's see, what do we get here? Perfect. Maybe a little bit of red actually. Make it like some of these Australian pines. Now remember, these are in the distance, so they're not going to be too dark. There you go, little tree. Let's give you some sun here, shining upon you. Now I'm barely looking at my reference photo here. I'm just trying to make this one a little bit more unique, so I don't have two of the same, really too much of the same. Okay, so I'm just using the side of my brush here, the edges, to this motion. Okay, what it does is feathers out the color, just blends it a little bit with the background with not too much paint, almost like scumbling. Okay, just give an indication of trees back here, nothing too specific. Cad yellow medium, lots of white. Let's see what we can do here. So we're gonna make this kind of like, you see what I told you about when you put dull colors and then initially? And there's a reason why I do it, so that when you put lighter colors on top of them, they really stand out. And I'm probably gonna get even lighter than that. And it's okay if some of the base color, some of the bottom colors show through. All right, it's fine. It's not a problem. It's what makes the painting even better. Make it like the sand just goes up there a little bit more. All right. Let's fix the ocean a little bit more. All right, booyah. Maybe a little bit more yellow towards the shallow water here. Just be careful what you do. Because now this is at the stage of the painting where you got to be a little bit more careful here. All right. Because otherwise that means I have to go back and do more mixtures and yada, yada, yada. And I don't want to do that. Because it'll be harder to match because I let some of the base colors show through. So when you try to paint over that, it's just like, oh no. There you go, just straighten this out a little bit. Done, all right. Leave that water dry for a minute. Let's start working on the grass. And then we'll work more on the sand and then a couple trees here. And then we're done. All right, grass. Let's use a flat brush. Flat brush, number 4. We're just gonna scumble some grasses here. Illusion of grass at least. All right. So let's start with the distant grass. Ultramarine blue, a little bit of ochre, maybe a little bit of alizarin. Grade that down a little bit. Too much. And you'll see why, because eventually I'm going to put highlights. Just lightly scumble. It's okay, the base color is showing through, that's fine. Just representation of grass. Using the edges of my paint. Let's go a little bit. A little bit greener here. Just mix the paints a little bit. As I come towards me a little bit more, towards the foreground, the grass color is going to get a little bit more defined, and I'm just using again the corner. All right, I'm still working the colors, working the base colors of this grass. There you go. Let's put a little bit darker towards the front. All right, I just want to show some volume. Okay. Here and there. Yes, I just went over what I just did, and no, it's not a problem. And let's do some grass running off here. There you go. Let some of this base show through again. All right, no real definition of grass yet. All right, now we're going to actually start giving this grass a little bit more definition. Let's go a little brighter greens by going, well, I guess that was not too bright here. So right here, I'm just going to use some brighter colors. And maybe I'll put some different highlights using different blues afterwards here. Again, just manipulating my brush, scumbling here, there, and I'll put a little bit more detail afterwards. So let's see. So let's run. Just use my hand just to tamper down some of these colors here. You know what? Use a smaller. Give it some light. Give this some light here, back here too. So I'm kind of giving like two different kind of planes here. So I just brought this down a little bit, this a little bit higher because of perspective. Where you're standing, it'll look higher further back than it will be in the front. It's another thing you could learn about is perspective. It could either make or break a painting a lot of time. Notice I'm using the edge of my brush. Some darks, lights. Here's a better brush. There you go. So now let's work on adding more grasses here and there. Just giving some indication of sea oats. Some of these grasses between these green ones as well. I'm just doing a circular motion here. Some up, some circular. Basically, this is just like a visual texture, that's all. Let's add like some light hitting some of these grasses here. All right. You know what, let me add a little, probably bush like right here. Let's go for alizarin crimson. A little bit of ultramarine, burnt umber, maybe a little bit of cad yellow medium. Make it like this brownish green. Yeah, there you go. Add some bushes here. And you know, notice how I shaped the bush here just to make it show like there's some grass right in front of the bush. So basically I'm just really sculpting this bush here. Have some in front of it here. It's okay if I'm going over what I already did, no problem. No big issue. Bam, bam, bam. Add some green. Some highlights. There you go. Yes, I'm actually going over some of the stuff I already did. All right, let me work a little bit more on this highlight over here. Hint of cad yellow light. Now remember to give definition, okay? Instead of, don't go straight. You got to give the landscape curvature. It's always nice to describe, show. You could always represent the shape of the landscape just by how you form your strokes. Could tell a lot. Let me add some speckles of sand. Let me see. Let me take my brush, make this really wet here. Maybe add a little bit of. Notice how wet this is, it's bubbling. Oops. There you go. Flick the end of your bristle. Just be careful as you get to the top. There you go. Let's make some wave out in the ocean here. I'll use almost pure white. Remember, these are distant waves. They don't have to be well defined. Give some highlights here and there. There you go. So now let's add some Floridian Christmas trees. You know what that is, right? Palm trees. So I got a little pastel pencil to sketch out where I want to put these trees and then just go over it with the paint. And what's nice is that the pastel will mix with the paint without causing any effects. So let me see. Let me look at my reference. Let's start, let me see, about right here. Then I'm going to put another one right here, and there's going to be some around here. All right, that's all I needed. All right, so let's make the trunk of the tree. Let's put some yellow ochre and ultramarine blue. Just gives it a nice, just give it a nice light gray here. Let me see if this works. Yep. Maybe add a little bit more yellow ochre. works. Let's do another tree here. This tree's a little bit closer. Now let's get some indication of palm fronds here and there. Just mixing like a random kind of a dark color. Let's make same thing with this one. All right, so let's start adding some of the leaves, make some dark greens here. See if a different brush will work a little bit better. The one I had just completely sucked. Just the basics. You don't have to get too fancy. One branch like this. Just vary your mix a little bit. highlights here and there. Let's do that around here. Some oranges here, there. Add some blue. Remember, the sun's coming this way. Same thing here. Some really bright same here. Now they're going to be more faint in color and more bluish perhaps. So I'm using ultramarine blue, a little bit of yellow ochre, and alizarin crimson, just to gray it down a little bit. There you go. Just an indication of tree here. There. Same here, just quick indications. Just some real fine trunks, maybe a little bit lighter. The reason I went lighter is because just to give it like indication of sun hitting those tree trunks in the background over here. There you go. They're really not that important, you know, because they're just in the back. So there's really not much I want to say about those trees. Some of these grasses are catching a little bit of light here. Make them tall because they're in the foreground. They're right in front of you, so naturally they're going to be a little bit taller. Catching light. It's all about perspective. Yeah, they're flying. There you go. Give a little bit of visual interest here. 3 of them. There you go. What do you guys think? If you really enjoyed this painting, you could leave a comment. If you have any questions about this painting, leave it in a comment. Just sign my name and we're done. It's too heavy here, so I'm just going to sign it right over here. Hope you guys enjoyed this painting. I'll try to do a little bit more for you guys, probably a different theme next time, we'll see. So again, we were using acrylics, cad yellow medium, cadmium light, yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, cerulean blue, burnt umber, and titanium white. So with this limited palette, you could just achieve just about anything you want, make any color you want just about. So it's all about subtlety. Remember that. Make it subtlety. You don't need to have everything very bright. You keep your brightest bright for last. Mute a lot of your colors and really amplify the colors where you want your vision, where you want the viewers to lock into. Now remember, anything that's blurry will push the eye away, and anything that's in focus will attract the eye. So put a little bit more effort and detail where you want the viewer's eye to be, and make everything else just blurry, because the eye will automatically go where it's got clarity, where it's clear, and everything's in focus. Like, you know, here, blurry, it's nothing, it's trees, just give indications. Same here, nothing fancy. But here, as you can see, we add a little bit more focus, a little bit more detail. Same thing here, because basically, you know, I want you to focus around this area more than anything. You know, just like brighter highlights here, not as much here. I didn't do it over here. I really don't want your eyes to focus that much over here. I want it here in this general area. This is why also I added those 3 birds at the same time, to, you know, these 3 little minute details just to focus here. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the next painting. Thanks for watching, guys.